Every year at this event, we get to talk about the future, and now we get to hear from 4 industry leaders that I believe can give us unique insights into what it takes to run the race I just outlined and how we can win in this AI economy. The leaders you're about to hear from are going to help us explore some of the key questions of how we really understand the future. And for that, they represent the full value chain in the industry, from consumer, enterprise to infrastructure. And they've each made distinctly different bets in how to compete. It's those differences that bring this discussion to life. So let's get started. Let me introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker leads connectivity for a company that has completely reinvented itself, transforming from an asset-heavy industrial conglomerate to a global asset manager and operator. He has built and run telecom operators across Indonesia, the UK, and Singapore, and has over 30 years of experiences in running and building successful telcos. He's run some of the most impressive IT transformations, and today is focused on building the infrastructure layer that AI depends on, from data centers to subsea cables to the connectivity for sovereignty at scale. Please join me in a very warm welcome to the CEO of connectivity at Keppel, Manjot Singh Mann. Please.
Thanks, Nick. Good morning, Copenhagen. There are 2 things that I will not talk about. One is telcos, and 2 is technology. And the reason why I will not talk about it is not because I don't like it. I've been in telcos for the last 30 years. It's because you will hear about telcos a lot in the next couple of days. And I will seek your attention to look at what business transformations can do to create sustainable shareholder value. And these transformations are not limited to consumer businesses, but enterprise B2B businesses as well. So I come from Singapore, where Keppel was once known as a large engineering conglomerate. Engineering was in our DNA. We used to make oil rigs. We used to make data centers. We used to construct power plants, water plants, waste-to-energy plants, district cooling systems, subsea cables, and we had a small business on asset management where we used to have an AUM of about $2 billion. But then we realized that we were actually sitting and standing on a burning platform. And why is that? Because we realized that the way the market looked at us, we were heavily undervalued. We were distinct business units. We were working in silos. And every time the analysts would value us, they would look at our net book value, and not just that, they would apply a conglomerate discount on our valuation. So we realized that if we did not transform ourselves, maybe there would be some large PE fund looking to come into Keppel and transform it. So we decided to do to ourselves what we believed would be done to us by somebody else. And therefore, the transformation journey of Keppel started not very long back in 2023 with a project called Darwin, where we said there were 3 basic elements to the transformation. One, we wanted to be a global asset manager with operating capabilities. There are not many in the world. There are a lot large global asset managers, but to be an asset manager who can build his own assets, operate them and run them, and then flip them for profit, and then return back to the LPs who have invested in the funds, there are not many. So that was our first criteria. The second area where we thought we would have to transform ourselves would to divest some businesses and monetize a large base of our non-core assets. So lo and behold, we actually divested the largest part of our business, which was our offshore marine business. Keppel in those days used to have 32,000 employees, and 27,000 of them were in our Keppel offshore marine business, and we divested that. We are now with 5,000 people. We took that gumption and that courage to divest our largest part of our business. And then we looked at our balance sheet, and our balance sheet had close to 17 billion of assets, of which we found 14.5 billion of assets that we could monetize, that were non-core to us. Then third, we knew that all our businesses, the remaining businesses, which were connectivity, infrastructure, and real estate, were running in silos. How do we, as we become a global asset manager, bring these businesses together to create synergies? Because the value proposition that we bring to our LPs and our customers is a combined ecosystem and not individual businesses. So we became obsessed with going asset light. There were three things that we focused on. Making sure that we went asset light. We made sure that asset management was at the forefront of our business. And third, to make sure that we were recycling our capital quickly and intelligently. This is a very interesting slide because this defines of Keppel of today. The model that was vertical silos of the three businesses moved into a horizontal model. It looks vertical, but actually it works horizontally, and let me explain how. At the front end of the funnel sits our asset management business. We call it the fund management and investment arm or division. Their job is to raise funds, to get LPs to invest in them. And we, as operating divisions, which is connectivity, infra, and real estate, connectivity is under me, our job is to create those assets, build those assets around the world, where the funds can invest in them. And at some point in time, when the assets stabilize, we then flip the assets to the REITs and trusts, where Keppel is one of the largest shareholders themselves. So this becomes almost a limitless capital recycling system where we source funds, we deploy funds, we create value for it, and we return the value back to our fund to our LPs, while retaining and creating more funds through asset monetization of non-core assets. So that's the model that we created. But interestingly, our secret sauce doesn't end there. The secret sauce is also how we work with each other. How does connectivity work with infra? How does infra work with real estate? And how does real estate work with connectivity? Is another secret sauce that we developed, because the world is becoming more an ecosystem play. It is not a siloed play anymore. For data centers, for example, it is no more a land play. Land is as important as infrastructure or power that you bring to data centers. Water and cooling is becoming even more important in this day and age compared to power, because there is water shortage. So clearly, all these things have to come together for us to create our alpha. And the way we work now is data centers are not anymore a 20 megawatt or a 30 megawatt capacities anymore. There are large data centers, there are campuses, there are parks being built. So all the master development of those large land parcel banks is being done by our real estate division. How to bring power into that land bank and create it into a power bank is done by our infra division. How does cooling work and creating a district cooling plant to ensure that all the data centers in the park are cooled is being done by our infra division. And all the money to do this is coming through our asset management arm. So that is the way this whole system works for Keppel as we go along. But clearly, I want to leave all of you with 3 clear thoughts. 1, go asset light. 2, recycle capital. And 3, believe in asset management. The moment you do all those 3 things, you go asset light and you're able to create capital recycling. You look at the shareholder value that you can create, and the proof of the pudding is in reality. Our market cap 5 years back was about $6 billion US. It's about $17 billion as we speak today. Our TSR, which is total shareholder return, is been 102% compared to the stock exchange of Singapore at 76%. So clearly the market, the analysts, the shareholders, and our LPs have realized that this transformation is creating sustainable shareholder value, which is what we all work for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mann. Who's it? Stay there, clicker. Thank you, Mann. A strikingly different view of how an established conglomerate can think very differently about how to view its portfolio of assets anchored in underpinning this AI economy. Now, let's look at this from a very different angle. Our next speaker took one of the biggest jobs in European telecoms just over a year ago when she joined BT to lead the consumer business. She brings more than 25 years of experience from Bell Canada, where she progressed from a co-op student to the president of the wireless and comms consumer divisions. In that role, she led an $8 billion business and today leads one of the most prestigious businesses in the UK and in Europe. And she knows what it takes to succeed in markets where consumers increasingly take connectivity for granted. Please join me in a very warm welcome to the CEO of Consumer at BT Group, Claire Gillies.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Copenhagen. Like many of you, I have spent most of my career and my life in telcos, working in big telecommunications companies. First, spending 2 decades, as Nick described, in the Canadian market. And now, just over a year ago, having moved to the UK to lead BT's consumer division. And it's fascinating. There's a couple of different things that, of course, are very different as you move across the Atlantic Ocean. It's not just the skyline. And while there are similarities, the market structure is quite different there. Competition is intense, with over 60 MVNOs and countless number of small altnets, all fighting for their slice of the market. Not to mention increased pressures of our regulation. And finally, while inflation is going up, prices in the market are going down, making BT's ambition to grow harder and harder. But it's that ambition to grow that is driving us to achieve the goal of being the UK's most trusted telco provider. And you're going to hear that word trust again and again as we push it forward, because it's essential. As we look at where infrastructure and telecoms sit in consumers' lives today, they are at the heart of almost everything we do personally and professionally. Whether we are working, gaming, monitoring, playing, we sit at the core. Customers expect our networks to work flawlessly, everywhere, every day, to enable them to live their digital lives. Of course, the regulators continue to put pressure on that, asking us for more accessibility, more affordability, more resilience. And in a market, as I've described, with lots of competition, that creates pressure. And here is where AI comes in and can help us unlock new potential. How does AI help us not only drive down costs in our business, but create unique customer value that can drive us back to growth in a long-term and sustainable way to support those investments we've made? Because without that growth, the investments we're making today will be under strain, and we won't be able to realize the full potential. And so we asked ourselves with challenge, what did we need to do to drive our business back to growth? And for the first time last fiscal year, we were able to take the consumer base back to growth in 8 years, a substantial achievement, all centered under the concept of driving improved customer experiences, not just cost takeouts. And on the screen behind me, what you'll see is just 5 examples, because AI is embedded across every part of our business and is allowing us to make change at scale. It's allowing us to solve customer problems. And that's what I would challenge each and every one of you in this room to do today. Think about how your business, your service, your products, your applications can help your business unlock customer potential. Because at the core of everything we do, it is about the customer. And so whether it's those customers who today in the UK spend 28 hours trying to find that perfect movie to watch on a Saturday night and introducing EETV with AI search, whether it's supporting the colleagues that work in your call center to ensure they get the right information to the customer at the right moment, whether it's whispering suggestions to those agents or summarizing a call such that we can democratize the data and the information from that call across our entire organization to make products better. We're doing other things like driving self-healing networks, rebooting routers in people's homes so they never have to go without connectivity. And finally, of course, preventing scams and securing our customers and protecting them. In BT, we see more than 1.9 billion attempts to attack our domains each and every year, and more than 200 million text scams. Customers are vulnerable to these, and as AI progresses, not only does it help us prevent scams, but it's helping bad actors as well accelerate them. And so at the core of telcos is trust with our customers. But we haven't, as Nick said, often been the most trusted industry. And it's now time for us to pivot into that. How do we take trust and put it at the core of each and every single thing we do for our customers? Because if you reflect back to those examples, customers trust us with their time. They trust us to support them in their digital world. They trust us to provide them with the right solution and personalized information. They trust us to protect them from those bad actors. And oftentimes, customers don't use the word trust. They say they want a network that works everywhere. What they're really saying is, I run my digital life on this platform. I trust you to keep me connected. I trust you to keep me safe. I trust you to give me the time and joy to do the things that are most important to me. At its core, it's about trust. And differentiation at this moment for us as telcos is key. In fact, it's existential, because without it, that ambition to grow is incredibly challenged. And so our ambition, of course, is to create long-term trusted customer relationships. We want to be the UK's most trusted national infrastructure. And we're investing to do that. We're investing in our networks, our products, the skills of our people, our data, all AI-enabled, so that our customers can thrive in their digital world. Trust is not a soft brand asset for BT. It's a commercial driver. It's something that's fueling us to drive back to growth, to understand our customers' needs, to protect them, and to anticipate what they're looking for next. And with that, we want to shift from being a connectivity provider who delivers exceptional networks to a trusted digital guardian, someone who can help our customers thrive in this new digital world. We can do that at pace. And to close, what I'd like to share with you is a most recent campaign that we put into the market for BT, showing just how many things we're behind in every day of UK customers, fueling them and enabling them to do brilliant things each and every day. I hope you enjoy the spot.
At a such stroke, the time from BT will be 5:13 and 10 seconds.
Good one. Well done.
At a such stroke, the time from BT will be 1:23 precisely.
Emergency with service.
At a such stroke, the time from BT will be 7:49 and 10 seconds. At a such stroke, the time from BT will be brilliant.
Wow. Thank you, Claire. A timely reminder not only of the importance of trust, but in that video, what it means to the people we serve. Thank you so much. Well, our next speaker, has spent 35 years leading and building businesses across telecoms, fast-moving consumer goods, and financial services. His career spans companies like Unilever, Telenor, Grameenphone. And until just 3 weeks ago, he was the group CEO of Axiata, a group he has led through a remarkable transformation from a traditional telco into a diversified telco tech portfolio. Under his leadership, the business has served over 190 million customers across 7 countries in Southeast Asia. And he's one of the few leaders in our industry who's delivered measurable commercial impact from AI and advanced connectivity at scale. Please join me in a very warm welcome as now advisor to the Axiata board, Vivek Sood.
Thank you, Nick. Very good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be standing in front of the best technology brains of the industry and talk a little bit about what a CEO looks at and visualizes how AI can deliver value to our businesses. Let me first give you a perspective that we all believe there's a significant ambition around what we can get out of AI. It's part of our strategies. Boards are wanting us to accelerate the implementation of AI. We are looking at how we transform from what was the traditional AI to Gen AI to the agentics. Is it an evolution? Is it a revolution? I think we are all talking about that. Having said that, I think we are still struggling to find how AI can help us grow. I think as an industry, we're still being not getting that kind of a sustainable growth. If any growth which we are getting is more improvement of the market structure, simplification of portfolios, and ensuring that we are able to deliver to our customers best value within the constraints which are there. So I think the key question for all of us is how do you bring this sustainable growth using AI at scale? How do you make that really effective so that we can, as an industry, see our, for example, cost of gigabyte coming down dramatically. Our customers are able to get that relationship, which in a way we've lost other than the relationship they have with us on a SIM. to be able to get more from more products and services which we can deliver to our customers using AI. I think that's the big challenge for all of us. And in Axiata, I think that's something which we are trying to see. How do you bring that to a scale where we can deliver that value to our customers? Let me quickly introduce Axiata for all those who do not know much about it. We are basically a telco tech company based out of Malaysia. We operate in 7 countries, serve around 190 million customers, and employ around 10,000 people. But if you look at our portfolio, it's basically split into telecommunication and technology. So we call ourselves a telecom technology conglomerate or a group. Now, if you look at some of the technology businesses, these are not businesses which we acquired from outside. These are the businesses which were an offshoot of our own existing telco businesses, created them as a separate vehicles to get value out of that and eventually opportunities to monetize those assets. Now, when we look at this, I think AI becomes a common thread across the portfolio. These are all diversified business with a very different regulatory environment they work in, but the common thread is all of them have an opportunity to leverage on the capabilities of AI, and that's where they come together. And surprisingly, some of the use cases we actually see pretty common across these portfolio of assets. We started our journey on AI back in 2022. So the first 2 years was really focused around building a data architecture, ensuring that we have proper governance in place, putting some of those use cases which were basically on traditional AI to work, and ensuring that we have a fair amount of training, essentially to the people who were building these use cases. So that's what we did initially. Last 2 years, we've been really focusing on getting the data architecture use cases, around 50 use cases on the classical AI and around 20 use cases on Gen AI, and adoption of the various tools on Gen AI. And in addition to that, we've kind of democratized the use of AI by actually taking the entire organization to basic training on AI and some of those into the advanced training of AI use of. But that's good. I mean, the benefits of that are there, but they're all limited. And they're limited because these are pockets of use of AI which have given us some benefits, but doesn't give it a scale. And that's where we are saying our next journey really is around how do you use AI for domain transformation? How do you break, for example, revenue as a key stream of domain? How do you ensure from the customer journey, from acquiring the customer until the retention and value creation out of the customer, we are able to use that. So that's, I think, the focus for us going forward. Let me just look at some of the elements of AI in action. I think networks, we've done a very decent job, I would say, on using network with the supplier mindset. How do you use AI to make the networks more efficient, better utilization of spectrum, reducing the wastages, etc. I think the next step for us is how do you take network to the consumers? How do you monetize the capabilities of network? Similarly, our businesses on the technology businesses, I think we've been doing fair amount of efforts on our financial services with things like credit scoring, loan procurement, acquisition of customers for the bank. Similarly, on our ADA, which is actually a data and AI experience business, how do we actually take to the consumer product companies our capabilities on AI to translate that into personalization, commerce, conversational AI, etc. So there's a lot of work which we've done on that. On the infrastructure business is really around how do you maximize the use of energy or minimize the use of energy as well as capital deployment. So I think there's been a lot of work which has been delivered in terms of getting that AI into creating value for us. Let me just talk about what are the next steps, what are the barriers for us still when we look at ourselves deploying AI. We put that into the 6 buckets. One clearly is the unified data ocean. I think all the operating companies have got the ambition to create one data layer, one basically data architecture which can be utilized in one seamless manner. Second one is focus around what we call the revenue stream, which is AI native CLM, CVM, basically looking at personalization, dynamic pricing, etc. Then looking at customer experience, how do we make the AI seamless when it comes to customer experience, not just call centers, but also looking at customer experience from resolving root causes, which can be distractor for the customers. Autonomous networks, I think there's a lot of discussions here on autonomous network. As I said, I think we are doing a lot of work on improving the efficiencies of our network, but there is still an opportunity for us to monetize the network capabilities. And then obviously from productivity standpoint, agentic AI adoption, I think, is important. To me, productivity is important, but that's not where the value lies. I think value really lies in how do you drive the revenue growth and how do you actually optimize the cost on that structure. I mean, for us, people cost in the markets where you operate is just 5 to 6%. Our IT cost is 2 to 3%. It's not going to make material difference for us if you're going to be improving productivity to bring that down. It's really about how do you drive that into values for the consumers and improve our cost of serve. And the last bit is really around the organization, focus around how do we change the culture of the organization to be AI-ready organization. So this, to summarize, I think we are basically looking at ourselves on these 4 streams: revenue, customer experience, intelligent networks, and productivity enhancement through the agentic. And we run basically 6 task forces within the organization where all the operating companies are actually involved in working together to arrive as those task forces. And also to enable that is what we have, the unified data ocean, as well as the AI-ready organization, which requires the organization structure, skills. And at the end of it, I think the organizations cannot win unless you have a culture beneath, which is enabling AI at the core. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivek. What an impressive story, and so much detail there as well on what it takes to make that possible. And we're going to hear more from Vivek a little bit later. Now, our final part of our panel today is a speaker and CEO who's done something that very few CEOs in this industry have had the courage to do. He inherited an organization carrying 25 billion euros of debt that hadn't met guidance in years. In just 4 years, he sold the fixed network, returned the company to profitability, hit guidance every single year, rightly something that is unprecedented as a statement, and he's repositioned this company as one of Europe's most storied operators to a completely different future. Forbes Italia called him the man who changed Tim, and he'll tell you the hardest part is just beginning. Please give a very warm welcome to the CEO and Managing Director of TIM, Pietro Labriola. Welcome, Pietro.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I will not talk only about AI, because we talk about AI, but sometimes we forget that AI is just the peak of a digital ecosystem, and we are forgetting how the things are connecting among them. But before to talk these things, I will ask to send a video, please.
Data protection, resilience, greater continuity, independence from non-European rules and decisions, we must shift from physical sovereignty to digital sovereignty. And we need a new jurisdiction to govern and protect what matters most in our digital dimension.
All the colleagues have used one word, trust. But when we talk about AI, cloud, we have to talk about trust, but also about sovereignty. For us, as a telco, we are entering a new level. We are entering in the next level of the game. In this next level of the game, we will be one of the main players to manage the digital ecosystem. I will try to drive you through all the steps. First of all, the new level of the game, connectivity, continue to be essential. We must be very clear. Without connectivity, you have zero cloud. And with zero cloud, you have zero AI. But connectivity is no longer enough. We have to move to the next level of the game. We are moving from connectivity to trusted digital infrastructure. What all the colleagues mentioned until today is a trust ecosystem. In this trust ecosystem, speed is not enough. You are not asking anymore only speed and how fast is the connection. You are asking how much I can trust the connectivity and the solution. And here we are to the main issue. AI and cloud need control. When we start to talk about these things, people are starting to think to sovereignty as a bad word. But who of you, please raise the hands, who of you don't want to know where your data are stored, where your data are processed, under which jurisdiction they are worked, who can access that? When we talk about that, it seems that we are talking about something strange. But I will do a further stupid example. Will you give you the keys of your house to someone unknown? Will you allow to someone that you don't know to enter in your house and to do whatever they want? But I can use also another example. Will you put your money in a bank account that you don't know? You don't know which under jurisdiction that bank account. At last, you will give the keys of your car to someone that you don't know. You don't know where you will drive the car, what he will do. So when we talk about trust, we are talking about who controls what. So when we talk digital sovereignty, we are talking not about isolation. We are talking about the need to control the things. So this is the role that the telco player can play. In Italy, TIM, working in the enterprise segment, we own 17 data centers, 8 of which are tier 4. We own the widest backbone. We own cybersecurity company. So, as we were talking at the beginning, as a telco in Italy, but also in Europe, we are candidate ourselves to be the trusted layer in this new environment. I don't want to take more time. I would like to be very easy to explain this point. Sovereignty is not isolation. Sovereignty means take the control of our data. Thank you.
Thank you, Pietro. A passionate speech on sovereignty. We've got a topic we're going to come back to shortly. Now, we've heard there 4 very different perspectives, 4 very different strategies, 4 very different kinds of business. Now we move into a discussion, and I've pre-briefed each of our panelists to say, please don't hold back, don't run this as a classical panel, so I'm counting on you to jump in as you see fit. Let's start with the question that I think underpinned each of your perspectives there, which is, what does the customer really want now? We talked about trust. I think that's a underpinning of what's needed. But Claire, maybe start with you. You're serving so many customers. You brought to life with your video there what it means to people's lives. What do you think the role of a telco is in this AI era? What do customers really want from us?
Well, when you think about a telco and the way that it is centered at the heart of consumer lives, it is about trust, and I continue to push into that because it is about reliability, it is about personalization, is about protection, it's about enhancing their life. So when you think about the challenge we have today, Nick, and for the other panelists, it's about how do we take the capability that AI is giving us now and not necessarily have to create AI tools, but enhance each and every single thing that we're doing to fulfill customer needs through the use of AI in a way that is faster speed to market and more efficient and cost effective for us to launch.
Mann, you spoke about the needs of infrastructure. You're underpinning a lot of what Claire's describing, but how do you see the customer needs when you're thinking about your asset-light business? What needs are you trying to service that are new?
So let me put my telecom hat for a moment before I think there are two things that the customers look at for AI when telecom is concerned. One is security, in terms of how secure are they when they are dealing with the operator in terms of different aspects of whether it's a recommendation engine, next best action, et cetera, et cetera. And the other is resilience. What happens on autonomous networks? What happens if things go down? How can AI help for them to be connected? So those are the two, and I think the regulators are also in many ways looking at those two things more often than anything else in terms of AI in telcos. But coming to digital infrastructure, our customers are pretty much the hyperscalers, Western, Eastern, and neo clouds, and so on and so forth. Well, what they seek from Keppel is an integrated play. What they see us as is a one-stop shop for all their needs, whether it be land, power, water, cooling, etc. And it is much easier for them to deal with one company giving all solutions to them, rather than them trying to stitch a solution with different people. And that brings other challenges with it in terms of ownership, in terms of if things go wrong, whose neck do you choke? So that's what the customers look from us. And the last piece is for our asset management business. Our group CEO always talks about LP first mindset, because those are the guys who are giving us the money to deploy and build our assets. So the whole organization is now pivoting towards an LP first mindset. How do we make sure that the returns to our LP is on top of our mind? And that's what drives our behavior.
What's coming next? Pietro, you were noting down there.
I think that it's important to keep separate the consumer world from the enterprise world. In the consumer world, I can tell in Europe, I cannot say outside Europe, also if I lived in Brazil, customers today are looking for price. They don't understand the difference in terms of quality of the service. But this is the next challenge, because to be clear, latency and uplink will become a game changer in the experience. If you want to use eyeglasses to do real-time translation, with low latency, it doesn't work. So one of the main issues of the telco player in Europe is to start to explain that the telco, the mobile, the fixed, is not just a pipe. It's an habilitator of new experience. This is the challenge of the consumer that today is looking for price. They give away the privacy to have for free social. You have to keep in mind that this is the way in which the customer thinks. When we move to enterprise, it started to be completely different. They're entering and they're understanding that the world is changing. I try to be very clear. Until yesterday, I'm not telling you about 30 years ago. Until yesterday, all of us, we were living in a physical world with clear boundaries, clear regulation, labor, fiscal, privacy. I was in Italy, Italian law. While we were talking, it was created a new dimension, the digital one, that have also its own currency, the crypto. In this digital world, it's not clear which is the jurisdiction. So you think, I'm putting my data in Italy in a data center in Rome, but they are outside the Italian jurisdiction. So I'm not saying that this is bad, but you want to know under which regulation you are working. And this is something that the company are experiencing and understanding now. And so they are starting to ask more details about how I can protect my data. I complete this kind of thought, giving you an idea. In Italy, the public administration didn't want to put mission-critical data in a technology that is not under the Italian jurisdiction. You cannot work without the hyperscaler. So what we did is to keep the cryptography key in the hands of an Italian company, and it will allow to use the best of foreigner technology, guaranteeing the national jurisdiction.
So customers want outcomes, not just more gigabytes and technology talk. And enterprises want to trust and you to be that assurance layer. Okay. Vivek, how's it looking from a Southeast Asia perspective? What are they similar needs, different needs emerging from customers?
No, I mean, I think a little bit uniquely placed because these are all fairly developed markets. We worked in so-called emerging markets where the ARPUs are $1.20 to around $6 ARPU, right? So that's the kind of market we operate in. But what we've seen over the last couple of years is customers are more willing to pay for experience. They're willing to pay for services. They're willing to pay for right kind of products offered to them at the right point in time. So there's that willingness to pay. And that's a bit of a shift from pure price play in telecom to more an experience. And also, I think security is becoming a very important element on when your customers have the relationship with us. Our view is that we've got these 190 million customers who we interact with on a daily basis. It cannot be just selling gigabytes to them. It has to be beyond selling gigabytes to them. How do you build marketplace for other services using API, as could be for consumers, could be small, medium enterprises, could be for the large corporates? How do you build that marketplace? I think that's where we see big opportunities to rise. I mean, I've seen, our businesses, we are always trying to retain our customers by actually discounting. Turn that around. How do you actually retain your customers? By giving them more value, more products, more services, but charge them more. I think that's the hypothesis, and that's where I think AI will play a very, very important role. In the past, I mean, we all talked about digital services. We always talked about bundling products and services. I think it can be with real time, with efficiencies. I think that's something we can really build as new opportunities for growth in our markets. That's where I think there's an opportunity, right?
Claire?
Well, this point about price, I made the comment about how competitive the UK is. And what we find is you have a lot of non-core telco companies coming into the space. And the price and the margins and the cost of the infrastructure is less relevant to them. And so I think just Vivek's point about how do you build value add? How do you create differentiation through product, differentiation through experience, such that you can protect that relationship? Because that is one of the greatest challenges we're seeing in our market is very different needs or interests of the competitors in the market. And there is a risk that they crash price. And then our ability to invest in these very expensive infrastructures is challenged.
Well,
Can I have a contrarian view?
please do.
Telcos forever have been trying to charge more for experience. And the latest being 5G. And we all know what happened to ARPUs after 5G was launched, in spite and despite of putting the investments in for billions of dollars. So I wish telcos best of luck to be able to charge for better experience because of AI. I'll be very happy to see a use case where any telco has been able to price it at a premium because of AI. And if that works, wow, that'll be something. That'll be a day we have to wait for. It'll be great if somebody can do that. But empirical data so far, customers can sacrifice experience for cost.
So what do you think is the opportunity for growth? Where would you place your bets?
So I don't deny that there is an opportunity with AI for growth, but growth in what? I think there is a lot of work on efficiency and cost that can be done. I believe that. And therefore, it is, of course, cost cutting doesn't always last forever. It's always within a time frame. But having said that, the reality is that unless telcos are able to create new business models because of AI, doing more of the same on AI, on customer experience is not going to get you value. You have to create new business and revenue pools because of AI, whether it is security or other business lines that you can look at developing. But it has to be a new revenue pool. It has to be a new business pool. It cannot be more of the same.
So not just more of the packaged per month, or you can eat. This has got to be a charge for the moment.
We are. Sorry, I can speak with a little more passion because I'm kind of one leg in telecom and not both legs in telecom. We are very suicidal in nature. We love to price ourselves down at the first instance that we get, and we call it creativity. But the reality is we are just dying with 1,000 cuts, as you see shareholder returns on most telecoms. But I'm very hopeful that AI will probably change in some ways a business model that will emerge that can help build value.
Do you think it's creating new needs? Are we kidding ourselves that this is about experience, or is it creating new needs? Each of you spoke about, Pietro, you spoke about privacy and that customers have seemingly willingly given that up for social, for example. But we're talking about a different level of safety here. We're talking about information consumption. We're talking about automated physical AI in our homes and so on. Do we just maintain this role of the pipe in the background, or do we have a bigger responsibility?
But I think that we have to put on the table some difference between UK that is no more EU, because once they left EU, some regulation in UK changed about the telco player, and I cannot talk about other continents. The truth is that in Europe it's very difficult to innovate, because when you want to innovate and they say you can innovate, but not too much on the right, not too much on the left, not too much on the back, not too much on the street, it's quite complex. I'll try to do some stupid example of what is happening in Europe. For example, we paid in Italy 7 billion euro for the 5G frequencies. The base of the 5G frequencies on the standalone one is to differentiate the quality of service, but it is against net neutrality. You have to guarantee the same level of service. Another example. Please, who of you use WhatsApp for calls, and who of you is using the traditional calls? I think that if I find someone that is using the traditional call, it will be an example. Now, we have to explain to me why, when I'm a telco player, I'm obliged to give to the customer a customer care 24 hours a day with human being. And WhatsApp, no. Which is the difference? While I'm obliged to have legal interception and WhatsApp, no. Which is the difference? Why on Instagram I can apply a different GDPR than on the telco? Because sometimes we say, telco, stupid guy, they don't innovate. But it's not easy to run against Marcel Jacobs and you run with the Havaianas, while he's the leader in the world. So in Europe, one of the main issues today is to deregulate, because differently we will die. Because we have to choose. We want to be back to the universal service, perfect. Or you have to allow to us to compete on the other. Just to give you an idea, all of you now like Starlink. Wonderful, 1 trillion. When Starlink sell in Italy, but in UK, but in any country of the world, the satellite service, which under jurisdiction and regulation they play that game? Because they are not under the Italian jurisdiction. They do not have the obligation that we have today. So what we have to start to understand that the world of 30 years ago is completely changed, and the next 5-10 years will continue to change. So we have to choose in Europe, or to regulate everybody, or to leave everybody to act in a the regulated environment to follow the customer needs.
Thank you for being so passionate, Pietro. Claire, your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's exactly right. The market is changing very, very fast, and we have new competitors like we've never had before. And so standing in the same place in a state of stasis is one that will inevitably put us into decline. I agree with that. And it is a combination, as you said. How do you create a more efficient business? How do you take costs out? Because customers are always going to want lower prices, but at the same time, continuing to advance the services and the products that customers are looking for. And that's really why it's incumbent upon all of us to really focus on the customer. You know, yes, they want coverage everywhere. Satellite helps fill in the gaps. I mean, it's inevitable. And so I think when you start with the customer and you challenge sort of the status quo that we have in our businesses, that gets the telcos to the right ultimate outcome. But we must change. And the good news is AI can help us do that at a much, much faster pace.
And it can help us, that efficiency can help us create the capital to then reinvest as well. This isn't just about a race to the bottom. This is about actually creating the headroom for that. I want to pull a thread that's come up a few times. Pietro, you spoke very passionately about sovereignty. We talked about trust. To me, these things are all highly related, overlapping. If we're moving to a world where regulators, nations are going to run on AI, our daily lives, our companies, our countries, and we want to be sure that not just where those workloads are running, but how those workloads are running is keeping what matters to us in that location right. What's the role of a telco in that? Because if I speak to frontier model providers, even regulators today, the conversation quickly drifts to the infrastructure part. But when we look outside in at what sovereignty really means, it's about this at runtime challenge of how do we know in that moment that model is serving the right answer. So do we have a legitimate role to play there as an industry? Or is that somebody else's problem? Vivek, let me start with you, then I'll come to...
If I may, two things, because when we talk AI, we are forgetting sometimes the dimension of the distance. If you want in the future mission-critical service, you will have the data center at 300 kilometers from the customer, because differently, the latency do not work anymore. So when we talk about sovereignty, or you say, I want the data center in the country, sometimes it will be a must, not for a regulation, but for a technical feasibility. The second is just the definition of the rules. Again, why, when you do a video via Teams, is under the US regulation. So in theory, an Italian judge cannot have access to a video or a call via Teams because this is not under the Italian regulation, while a phone call in the team network is under the Italian regulation, so there's the legal interception. So when we say sovereignty, we are not naive. It's a matter to define very well what was the way in which the world was working. When you are in Italy, you are under the Italian jurisdiction. Until today, or the best should be that the regulation jurisdiction that must be applied is the jurisdiction of the customer that is using the service, and not of the supplier that is supplying the service. Because in the future, I can put myself in an island, in any kind of the ocean, so no one can argue, supply from there the service. This is the issue.
Vivek, let me come to you.
So I think the markets where we operate, South Asia, Southeast Asia, I think there's been discussion now going on sovereignty. It's still at a very early stage. I think the governments are talking to us, the infra providers, on what kind of infrastructure needs to be built and what kind of orchestration should be there. I don't think there's one fit answer for every market. Maybe where we have a dominant telco presence and the requirement of infrastructure is not that big, maybe we go end-to-end on building for the government. But there are markets where the infra players are very actively involved in terms of investment. There you get into the orchestration and the application layer, because you have relationship with the citizens of the country. I think we are known for being trustworthy when it comes to security, privacy, something which we are being very, very conscious about. So I think there are areas where we can actually play a very important role. But there's no one fit, as I said. I mean, you'll have to look at country by country, and you'll have to look at what's the government's objective on sovereignty. But I guess the fact that we do have a strong relationship with the citizens by virtue of the connectivity which we provide to them, I think there's a very, very important role we can play. Second thing is, even with respect to sovereignty, when you're doing data centers, maybe infra provider, we still do provide connectivity from there to the last mile. That's where the role where we play a very important part. So I think there is a lot where we can be involved, but the challenge is we've never been in the forefront to have those discussions with the regulators. We've always been behind. It's the infra providers, the hyperscalers, the cloud providers who've been having those discussions but the telcos will be behind. I think we need to take a lead on that part. That's very important.
The ground is shifting beneath us as this happens, because maybe regulatory concerns shift to keeping citizens safe, as you would hope, not just driving competition in market, which is important, but maybe secondary to what we're talking about here. Claire, let's bring it back to what it means for people, for your customers. How broad is the role of a company like BT in keeping customers safe in this AI world? How does that play into things like sovereignty?
Well, it's incredibly important about keeping our customers safe. In fact, when you look at what the government and the regulator is focused on, it absolutely is about the resilience of the network. So is it always available? They look at, are we making it accessible to all? So digital capabilities, are they accessible to all vulnerable populations and those who are in the most tech advanced groups as well? And they want to make it affordable. So we're always sort of looking for how do we provide all of those things that the regulator is looking for in a way that is compliant, right? You have that challenge, of course, of compliancy, but also educating regulators, because there's a tension I always find that's created between how do we keep people safe and how do we can do that in a way that is advancing and using the technology to the greatest of capability. So I do think that's something that we constantly are struggling with. But what I spoke about earlier, the scams and the security protections, I think is a fantastic example. And we're part of an organization in the UK called Stop Scams. And it's a collection of organizations across different industries that say, these devices that we put in customers' hands, there are many bad actors who are trying to take advantage of customers. And you look at the average wealth that is stolen from individual consumers each and every single day. I mentioned 1.6 billion attacks on domains. There is almost nothing more front of mind for CIOs today than cybersecurity. And so I think those type of roles that we can play as telcos at that leading edge, protecting national infrastructure, protecting businesses, protecting consumers from those type of activities is key. And that's where, that relationship with regulators really pushes forward. And just one of the things they depend on us for.
Mann, let me come to you. You're coming at this from the other side. You're building infrastructure. You're seeing the opportunities, doing that in some really innovative ways. How far do the infrastructure players go in this sovereignty argument? What's your role in this equation?
Actually, our role doesn't extend to the sovereign AI or the sovereign data that the hyperscalers, because it's their role to look after the data. We are just passive infrastructure. However, I think what is changing is because of the regulations around the world on sovereign data is changing, the landscape of data centers, how they are built and where they are built and for what purpose is changing. So countries which are very strong on sovereign data rules don't allow data to be ported out of the country, and therefore data has to be stored within the country, and therefore there is an opportunity for infrastructure. Also, it depends on whether the data center is being used for inferencing or for training, and therefore what kind of data can be ported out for training. There are countries who are insisting that the data that's brought into their country becomes their IP, and therefore there's a lot of discussion happening within the regulators to understand how sovereign data can be protected within the country with the help of infrastructure players in terms of how we can build and match that demand of sovereign data.
Now let me come to our last topic for today, which is what's going to leave, I hope, this audience with some clear direction on what is expected of them to build the technology and the operating model we need for the future. What are your expectations as CEOs when you think about, you've talked about efficiency, you've talked about trust, you've talked about cybersecurity. You just mentioned there the number one concern player for a CIO, absolutely cybersecurity, but then they've got a myriad of legacy and other challenges. It's a really tough job to be in. So what you expect, what you want to see from this global community in terms of changing the pace, in terms of driving up trust, in terms of giving you the tools you need that will drive the efficiency to invest? What's front of mind? What's your ask of this audience? Vivek, let me start with you, please.
No, I think, AI was always driven as a technology initiative. I think those days are over. I think we have to put customer first and bring the enablement to support what customer needs as a second step. So I think that's very important. What are the problems we are trying to solve for the customer? I think that is a fundamental change. It's no longer about technology, it's about business impact. I think there would be questions asked by the boards, by the shareholders on what's the impact of AI coming in. I think we need to keep that in mind. I think we've had a fairly good run where nobody's been questioning because everybody's in the run for that hype of investing in AI, but there would be a point in time, what's the value we are getting out of AI? I think that's something which we need to be prepared to do that. Third bit I think is very important is the education to the stakeholders, not inside, but external stakeholders on what are we doing with AI? How does that create value for them? I think is very important. So it's got to be customers, it's got to be various stakeholders, as well as the internal organization, which has to be aligned and cannot be just a technology initiative, right?
Mann, let me ask you to put that telco hat back on for a second and say, what's your advice to this audience?
No, I actually want to double down on what Vivek said. I think it's a fantastic point. I just for the sake of creating a bit of a buzz, technology left in the hand of technologists is bound to fail. It has to move to business. Business ownership of technology is more important than the technology itself, because then the results are seen, and it is extremely important for all technologists to understand that unless they are able to wash their hands off as quickly as possible and hand it over, the better it is for whether it's a telco or not telco, it doesn't matter. But technology cannot remain in the hand of technologists. It has to be owned by the business. And the second point is beware of 6G. You'll have to put so much investment on AI. You'll have to take measured thought of how do you put your investments in, because ultimately it will require a lot of capital deployment.
So don't run on autopilot. Don't just repeat the next G.
Yeah, I would advise against it, in spite and despite of all the vendors shouting 6G already.
Sage advice, Pietro.
I don't have any specific advice because you are doing something that is very exciting. You are helping us to enter in a completely different world. I will divide the company in two groups. The ones that will completely reshuffle the business model of all the existing company. And when you work with that, it's very funny, it's easy, because they have a mindset where they want to write again the way in which things have to happen. When you have to talk with company like mine, this is the tough job, because our company are not ready, because we are used to carry our business always in the same way. And sometimes embrace AI means change completely the mindset in which we have to work. We are facing this challenge today in team, and I can assure you that without a top-down, tough approach, nothing will happen. People are, let me say, against innovation because it means to come out from their comfort zone. So you have to try to understand in such a case the way of thinking of the company, because if you try just to impose, nothing will happen.
Very clear. Claire, let's finish with you.
I think it's really important, and I'll build on Pietro's point, because the industry has been built on resilience, certainty, process. And now we're going through this moment of change. And in fact, there's something called the Shirky principle, of which the institutions who can solve a problem for you are often the people who stand in the way of finding a solution, right? They're employed to do something a certain way. It's got them so far. It's created that resiliency and that respect. And these are the people we're now asking to disrupt themselves. So it all starts with culture. And I think one of the asks for this audience today is, how do we take these steps forward while preserving the resiliency at the same time? We need to be able to adapt. We need to be able to experiment, but do it in a way that continues to keep our customers and our businesses safe. And so I think that is the challenge, but it has to start with culture, and we need to break some of the things that have been institutions for a very long time.
Couldn't agree more. That means we're out of time, I'm afraid, but I want to firstly thank each and every one of our CEOs who's joined us here today. Very clear asks, very clear expectations, very clear challenges as well. Please give a very warm round of applause and thanks to our CEOs today. Thank you.
Thank you.